Right, hello everybody. Welcome back to another Bruges Group episode. This time we are joined by Baroness Hoey, the former MP for over 30 years representing the Vauxhall constituency, a committed Brexiteer and former government minister in the Blair administration. So first of all, of course, you're Northern Irish yourself. So what are your thoughts on the Northern Irish Protocol and the resulting sort of debacle that has came from the actual protocol itself?
Well, I think we ended up with a withdrawal agreement that it was certainly not perfect, but I think we need to remember back in those days how difficult the situation was in Parliament and how even the most ardent Brexiteers of us were beginning to get worried that we might actually lose Brexit. So I think in the end, what we got was very disappointing as far as Northern Ireland was concerned. But I'm hopeful that still a lot can change in that protocol. The protocol, I think it's very important that people watching this and overall understand really that what has happened, which is because the European Union wanted to protect its internal market, its single market, its very precious single market, as it keeps referring to. And because Northern Ireland has a land border with the European Union, they used the argument that anything that was going from Northern Ireland to the Republic of Ireland had the likelihood of being not complying with EU single market regulations. And of course, they used the Belfast Agreement, the Good Friday Agreement, to say that there could never, ever be any kind of trade border on the island of Ireland. And that was backed up and pushed very strongly by the Irish government, who used that whole question of the Good Friday Agreement to stop anything happening between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And at the time, I think a lot of people didn't really realise the implications of that it would actually mean Northern Ireland, as part of the United Kingdom, was going to be left in the single market, the internal market, and parts of the customs union, which meant now that we've seen all these different things happen, which is making it difficult for all sorts of trading relationships between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And now really showing that Northern Ireland is separate. I mean, I've described it as feeling a second-class citizen in the United Kingdom. I feel that people in Northern Ireland are now second-class British citizens. So that the protocol is going to have to be looked at, because apart from the sort of constitutional aspects of feeling very left out, very abandoned, and all those 44% of people in Northern Ireland who voted to leave, it wasn't the majority, but it was 44%, and they voted for a ballot paper that said very clearly the United Kingdom will leave. Didn't say the United Kingdom will leave, brackets, and Northern Ireland will stay in the single market. But apart from the constitutional aspect of us being driven further and further apart from Great Britain, it's also ridiculous. I mean, you can't get things across from Great Britain to Northern Ireland easily. Amazon is not sending a lot of things. I had I've used this example, but it was just such a classic example. I was ordering Winston Churchill's CD of his speeches for a friend of mine who wanted to have the CD. And when I went in and put the address in Northern Ireland, it just came up, we don't deliver to Northern Ireland. And that's happening on a lot of things. And then there's things like the pet passport. You know, if I want to bring a dog from Northern Ireland, from Great Britain to Northern Ireland, which many tourists do, and many people who live in England but have families in Northern Ireland, if you want to bring, you're going to have to get a rabies certificate, a health certificate. There's never been rabies. We haven't had rabies for years in Great Britain or Northern Ireland. And yet that's our own country. So it's little things like that. Each day we find something new. And I think it's pretty clear that it's going to have to be looked at. It's not sustainable.
Absolutely, and I know the DUP and First Minister Arlene Foster has been talking about revoking the Northern Irish Protocol or invoking Article 16, which is of course what the EU done, what would your advice to the government be on the Northern Irish Protocol? Do you think it can be revised and looked at, or do you think it needs to be scrapped altogether?
Well, I don't think a little bit of tinkering will do much good. Clearly, by the end of March, there is another deadline where a lot more health certificates are meant to be coming in. And I think what the government has asked the European Union to do immediately is to at least delay that for some months and to make some of the other arrangements that have been happening, to put that off for 6 months or for a year. Now that in it may get us over an initial hurdle, but longer term, it's not going to work. So ultimately, the protocol has to be fundamentally changed. And of course, the way it can be fundamentally changed is to invoke Article 16, which is that bit that the EU suddenly decided they could invoke after, because they wanted to stop. They suddenly thought that all vaccinations were all going to come and go, from into the Republic of Ireland or from the Republic of Ireland into Great Britain and into via Northern Ireland. So I think eventually it will have to be. I mean, there are other ways. It doesn't have to be Article 16. The government could decide to legislate. Remember, we had something called the Internal Market Bill, which everyone's, a lot of the Remainers jumped on as being breaking international law, but it actually would have allowed, in a situation where Northern Ireland was being affected economically or societally or environmentally, to be altered, and the Internal Market Bill would have given the government the power to do that and would have overridden it. So there are other ways we can do it, and I've been quite optimistic when I've heard the Prime Minister in the last couple of weeks, when pushed, repeatedly say that he is prepared to do something fundamental about the protocol. But I think it needs people in England particularly, and members of the Conservative Party and Unionist Party, of course, but let's not forget it's the Conservative and Unionist Party, to really be making sure their own members of Parliament understand it. Because I think a lot of MPs, and particularly those within the European Research Group, are genuinely feeling quite almost angry at themselves, because I think this went through and people just seem to think, well, it'll be all right. But actually what it's been is to basically abandon Northern Ireland and leave them in the clutches of the European Union. And the problem is, if we carry on as this is, as the rest of Great Britain, the rest of the United Kingdom, starts to diverge from all the other aspects of European Union law, because remember, we're more or less the same at the moment. When that changes, Northern Ireland will be driven even further away, and there will be more and more regulations that will not apply, and therefore that will lead to more problems. And also, when the European Union itself decides that they want to change something, Northern Ireland is going to have to go along with it, with nobody in Northern Ireland, either politician or member of the public or the United Kingdom government, having any say in it. So it is a travesty, and it is not in the slightest bit, it is not in any way working. Also, if you want to bring in the Good Friday Agreement, it's completely putting a horse and cart right through the Good Friday Belfast Agreement, which of course was the big issue that everyone went on for 4 years about, how we couldn't possibly ever think of actually challenging, or we had to protect the Belfast Agreement. It was the most important thing. And ironically, both what the EU did last week and what's been happening is that the Belfast Agreement, the East-West part of it wasn't just about North-South, it was about East-West, and that is all being now, pretty well ripped up in terms of what should be happening.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a key thing. Now, like you say, that the Belfast Agreement was something that we spoke about for 4 years, and people went over and over again for 4 years, and now it's sort of being given a back seat, if you like. an interesting point you made there was of course about the invoking of Article 16. When the EU invoked Article 16 last week, do you think that weakened the Northern Irish Protocol, weakened the integrity of the protocol, which was, of course, already a weak piece of legislation or a weak clause in an agreement?
Well, I think, as many people have used different metaphors, letting the cat out or whatever, it really did tear a hole in the protocol, because suddenly, after all this time of saying we desperately need this protocol to keep the Belfast Agreement safe and to protect it and to stop any hard border. No one's ever defined what a hard border is, by the way. Not to have a hard border on the island of Ireland. Overnight, literally, they said that they were going to get rid of it, and they didn't even ask or tell the Irish government beforehand. So, the idea, I think what's going to be coming in very interesting out of all of this is that the Irish government have worked very closely with the European Union over the last few years. The European Union has seen the Irish government and the way that they can, make things difficult in leaving has worked to the Irish advantage in terms of those who would like to see Northern Ireland being brought closer to the Republic. Now, of course, the EU have kind of got what they want, and we're out now. Well, they didn't want us to leave, but we're out. I think there will be a danger for the Irish government that they will suddenly discover they're not as important as they thought they were, and that they could well be, again, thrown under that colloquial bus when it suits the European Union. And we saw that a little bit last Friday. Now, admittedly, the European Union changed its mind very quickly, but I think that was a lesson for everyone, that when it comes to it, the European Union will do what's in their interest first, and in their determination to keep the 27 countries working together. So it was, in a way, it's been something that has been quite useful what they did, even though it showed up how ridiculous they were. And of course, the other thing that's just happened in the last few days, again, about the border, is that the Irish government, because of the COVID situation, have said, brought in on Friday, that from a few days ago, Monday, they would be able to stop cars coming over the border from Northern Ireland to the Republic, and asking them were their journeys essential, and if they weren't, either sending them back immediately or fining them €100. So suddenly this great free border that, we must never ever have a camera on, even though there's loads of cameras there already. Theresa May made such a thing about, suddenly it's okay to stop people and hold up cars. So if that can all be done, even if it's for something as serious as COVID, then the idea that, a few lorries couldn't pass over the border is just ridiculous. And the other thing that I actually really only thought about today, but someone else has been bringing it up, most of the big lorries from Tesco's, Sainsbury's that go over to Northern Ireland with food, all the food in the lorry for Northern Ireland is in sterling, because Northern Ireland has the pound. Anything that's going to the Republic has to be in euros. So, once again, there is such seems to me a very simple way of dealing with some of these problems if they really are terrified of things being smuggled into the Republic of Ireland. And so much of Northern Ireland's trade goes to Great Britain, and not down to the Republic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I know there's obviously been a few suggestions about a smart border, maybe, using sort of technology such as cameras and digital checks and that sort of thing. Do you think that's a viable way forward once we've come over COVID?
This is now, it is really a political problem now, not a technical problem. And it's a political problem because the Irish government used it with the European Union, the border issue. Really, the European Union, we know that some of their senior people did actually say, the penalty for the United Kingdom leaving the European Union will be they will have to give up Northern Ireland. I mean, that was a kind of almost a thing that was said a number of times. And so they are going to, not want to admit that this is actually causing even people in their own part of the Republic a problem, because there's a lot of going back and forward. So it is a political problem, and there's absolutely no doubt about it. As many experts are in customs, the way customs works in other parts of the world, gave evidence to the Northern Ireland Select Committee some time ago and pointed out how these things could be worked easily to stop the problem with long delays, the kind of cross-border trusted trader schemes. There's all sorts of reasons, but you need to have the will to make it work and want to make it work, and not want to see the whole issue as something that can be used for political reasons. So I think if we can get the European Union to realise that too, that actually in the end now, we have left, there isn't in their interest anymore. Why is it to cause even more problems? And I think we will eventually get this changed, but it does need people to sit up and realise that it's been happening, why it's been happening, and to speak out.
Absolutely, and I think you mentioned earlier about how it's going to take Conservative and Unionists on, in the Conservative Party and in England and Scotland and Wales to really stand up for this. Going back, sort of moving away slightly from Northern Ireland in the protocol. Obviously, now we've left the European Union. What do you think that the government should be doing now to really make the benefit of Brexit, to really feel the benefits of Brexit? And in your eyes, what are the biggest benefits of Brexit?
Well, of course, for me, a lot of this was about actually genuinely constitutional control, getting back control of our own country and our laws, and not having to listen to 27 other countries and all of that. And we've got that now for most things, apart from the Northern Ireland issue. But I was slightly disappointed in the fishing deal, but again, I think we can improve on that. I think what it needs is for the government to be very firm now with the European Union, stand up to the European Union. And I think that will happen, particularly once the trade agreement's been finally, signed off by everyone. And I really think there are some really, I would like to see the government now look at, corporation tax, look at VAT. I mean, VAT now, especially once we get through this COVID dire situation, I mean, VAT should be taken off all the construction industry so that we can get back to building things. And VAT has always been one of those taxes that just seems so unfair on poorer people. And I would like to see, the trade deals that Liz Truss is going around and signing up to. I mean, some of those we've had good relations before, but all of that is going to make a difference. And I think it's about really image, about the government actually showing business that the world doesn't end at the European Union level, that there is a big, big world out there very keen to work with us. And particularly, I would like to see much, much more emphasis on the Commonwealth, because all those countries in the Commonwealth have the same kind of standards on many of our issues, and they all have a language that binds us together, and we could do much more there. But I just think it's little things too, the fact that we could, not suddenly, but take down, reduce and remove the VAT on sanitary ware, which we couldn't do under the EU, that we could ban the export of live animals for slaughter. Although I have to point out again to all the animal welfare rights people watching that isn't going to be able to happen in Northern Ireland, because Northern Ireland is staying in the way under EU rules. So I said in the question the other week in the House of Lords to Lord Goldsmith, did he feel that animals in Northern Ireland deserve sort of some less welfare than animals in the rest of the United Kingdom, which was, my way of putting it. That just again the difference. So I think you know, it is early days, but we've had some good results, haven't we? And given all the negativity about what was going to happen, all those things that were going to happen when we actually voted to leave, then what was going to happen if, you know, a year later, then what was going to happen if when we finally, the transition was over. And, you know, suddenly we're getting, even the BBC had to put as its #1 story the other day about Nissen and Sunderland. And, you know, all those things just make people feel morale much higher. And I think that's what the government has to do. Part of their job is to actually make people realise that this is, it's not going to happen instantly overnight, but there's all sorts of little things that are going to make such a difference. And we are in control of our own destiny now.
Absolutely, and you make some very good points. You know that the trade deals Liz Truss has been agreeing and signing is really going to boost Brexit Britain. Just before we wrap things up, have you got any more comments that you'd like to make about, you know, your journey towards Brexit, or during the campaign, or sort of anything to do with Northern Ireland?
It's nice now because there's a few, you know, I'm obviously it's very nice to go into the Lords, and I'm very aware that I'm not elected in there, so we have to be very conscious of, you know, how we work and what we do, and not actually try and stop government from doing things. But there's quite a few of us in there now who joined in. I mean, Dan Hannan has just come in. We've got Lord Moylan, Claire Fox is there. There's a whole number of people now who were strong Brexiteers, and it's actually almost like a little club within the in the House of Lords, because as you probably know, and everyone watching will know, the House of Lords is full of very, very ardent Remainers, many of them who had worked for the European Union, worked in the European Commission, just could not bear the thought that we were leaving, and still thought that they could change it right up to the very end. So it's been it's very nice to have other people around, and not that we're, you know, going around trumpeting the fact, but I think, you know, given all the abuse that many of us took, it is quite nice to be, you know, in a situation where we can actually now and again remind people of how important that vote was in 2016, and how people, you know, really put their trust in the government to get us to leave, and how in the end we left. But it was a struggle, and it was at times very, very worrying. And I do have to pay tribute to you know, really two people. Nigel Farage, obviously, who without him at early days, we would never have got a referendum. David Cameron, who gave it, but I mean, he gave it for the wrong reasons, but never mind, he got a referendum. And then I don't think we would have finally got out without the Prime Minister and his kind of determination to get us out. Now, it's not quite like I would like it, because I want Northern Ireland sorted, but we have achieved so much, and it is down to the determination, the kind of bravery, and the way that everybody out there who believed in leaving kept true to what they had campaigned for. And I'm just very proud of all those people, and proud that now we can try and make it a really successful country and be proud of our country, because that's, I think, all of us love our country first and foremost, and that's what's important.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and it's been a really interesting conversation we've had. So thank you very much for that, and hopefully see you again soon, possibly in person at another Bruges group meeting.
Well, thank you, Ethan, and I hope we get back to that kind of normality as soon as possible. But thank you very much for your time.